Have you ever felt completely alone, even in a crowded room? Or struggled with a sense of emptiness, like something's missing, but you can't quite put your finger on it? Loneliness and depression are some of the toughest battles we face. But what if the way we approach them is making them worse? The Stoics believed that our suffering isn't caused by external circumstances, but by how we interpret them. And more importantly, they believe that we have the power to reshape our perspective, turning isolation into growth and hardship into strength. In this video, we're going to break down 12 Stoic remedies that can help you not just endure loneliness, but transform it into something meaningful. These aren't vague self-help cliches. These are timeless, battle-tested philosophies that have helped people for centuries. And by the end, you'll have a new way to approach those difficult moments. So, if you're feeling lost, if you're struggling, or if you just want to build a mindset that can handle anything life throws at you, stick around. Let's begin. Number 1, recognize that your thoughts shape your reality. It's easy to believe that loneliness or sadness are external forces, things that happen to you beyond your control. You look around and see couples walking together, groups laughing over dinner, and suddenly you feel like an outsider to life. But what if the feeling of loneliness isn't a product of your circumstances, but of your perception? Marcus Aurelius reminds us, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. That's the key. Happiness, or at least contentment, isn't determined by whether you're surrounded by others or alone. It's determined by how you interpret that state. If you tell yourself that being alone means you are unworthy or unloved, then loneliness will be painful. But if you see solitude as an opportunity to think, to create, to grow, then it transforms into something valuable. There's power in this realization. It means you don't have to wait for external conditions to change to feel at peace. You don't have to rely on someone else's presence to feel complete. Your life, your happiness, your sense of fulfillment, it all starts in your mind. And your mind is something you have control over. Number 2, seek strength in adversity. Loneliness, sadness, setbacks. When you're in the thick of it, it's hard to imagine these feelings leading to anything good. The pain feels pointless, something to escape from as quickly as possible. But the Stoics saw suffering differently. Seneca writes, "A setback has often cleared the way for greater prosperity. Many things have fallen only to rise to more exalted heights." What if this period of struggle is actually preparing you for something better? What if feeling lonely now forces you to develop self-reliance, to reflect on what kind of connections you truly want, rather than simply filling the silence with distractions? What if feeling low is not a sign that you're broken, but a sign that you're in the process of transformation? Think about the times in your life when you grew the most. Was it when everything was easy, or was it when you were pushed, when you faced difficulty and came out stronger? Growth rarely happens in comfort. It happens when you're tested. The challenge is to use your suffering rather than just endure it. What lesson is hidden in this moment? What strength are you being forced to build? Instead of resenting adversity, welcome it. Because what falls can rise again, and often it rises stronger. Number 3, accept what you cannot change. Much of our suffering comes from resistance, the belief that life should be different than it is. We fight reality, wishing things were another way, and in doing so, we make our pain even worse. Epictetus gives us a powerful remedy for this. Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish for them to happen as they do, and you will go on well. At first, this might sound like passivity, but it's the opposite. It's about freeing yourself from unnecessary suffering. If you're feeling lonely, instead of resisting it or seeing it as something wrong, what if you accepted it as just another part of life's rhythm? Seasons change, people come and go, and emotions rise and fall. Fighting against this natural cycle doesn't stop it. It only makes you exhausted. Instead of wishing for something different, work with what is. If you are alone, embrace it as an opportunity rather than a deficiency. Use it to reflect, to grow, to focus on yourself. Accepting what you cannot change doesn't mean giving up. It means finding peace, no matter the circumstances. Number 4, connect with humanity through gratitude. When you feel lonely, it's easy to focus on what's missing. You see people with their families, their friends, their seemingly perfect lives, and it only magnifies your sense of isolation. But Marcus Aurelius gives us a shift in perspective. Don't set your mind on things you don't possess, but count the blessings you actually have and think how much you would desire them if they weren't yours. Think about that for a moment. If everything you have right now, your health, your home, your access to knowledge, even something as simple as a warm meal, suddenly disappeared, how much would you long to have it back? Gratitude isn't just a feel-good exercise. It's a way to reframe your entire reality. Loneliness tricks you into believing you're completely disconnected, but that's rarely true. You have access to books filled with the wisdom of those who came before you. You have people, even if they're not always present, who have touched your life in some way. And more than anything, you have yourself. The more you focus on what you do have, the less power loneliness has over you. Gratitude is a direct counter to despair. Shift your perspective, and you may realize you were never as alone as you thought. Number 5, align your actions with your nature. One of the reasons loneliness feels so heavy is that it disconnects us from our sense of purpose. When you feel alone, life can start to feel meaningless, like you're drifting with no clear direction. Marcus Aurelius reminds us of something crucial. Man's proper work is to live in accordance with nature. So, what does that mean for you? It means that instead of focusing on feeling lonely, focus on doing something meaningful. The Stoics believed that fulfillment comes from action, living in alignment with your nature, your strengths, and your purpose. If you're an artist, create. If you love learning, study. If you find meaning in helping others, find ways to contribute. Many people assume that connection comes only from relationships with others, but it also comes from connection with your own purpose. When you are engaged in something meaningful, loneliness takes a back seat. You begin to feel part of something bigger, something beyond yourself. So ask yourself, what is your proper work? What aligns with your deepest nature? And instead of waiting for loneliness to pass, take action, because action is always within your control. Number 6. Seek solitude as a teacher, not a punishment. There's a difference between solitude and loneliness, though people often confuse the two. Solitude can be a teacher, a space for reflection and clarity, while loneliness feels like an emptiness, a void we desperately want to escape. The key difference? Mindset. Marcus Aurelius observed, "He who follows reason in all things is both tranquil and active at the same time, and also cheerful and collected." The idea here is that when you approach life with wisdom and rational thought, solitude doesn't have to feel like isolation. It can be a source of peace and strength. Consider history's greatest thinkers, artists, and innovators. Many of them sought solitude deliberately because they knew that true insight often comes in quiet moments. The constant noise of society can make it hard to hear your own thoughts, to understand what you truly want. Instead of seeing alone time as something to dread, use it as an opportunity. Read, write, think, observe. Don't run from your own company. Get to know yourself in it. If you can learn to be at peace in solitude, you'll never be truly lonely. You'll always carry a sense of stability within yourself, one that isn't dependent on the presence of others. Number 7. Serve others to serve yourself. When you feel lonely, your instinct might be to withdraw, to assume that no one cares or that you don't belong. But this is exactly when you should do the opposite. Seneca reminds us, "No one can live happily who has regard to himself alone and transforms everything into a question of his own utility." You must live for your neighbor if you would live for yourself. The irony of loneliness is that it often makes us turn inward when what we truly need is to look outward. Instead of dwelling on what you lack, ask yourself, how can I be of service? Who around me could use kindness, support, or simply a conversation? When you shift your focus from self-concern to helping others, you naturally cultivate connection and purpose. This doesn't mean grand, heroic gestures. It could be as simple as checking in on a friend, volunteering, or even offering a kind word to a stranger. The act of giving, time, energy, care, creates meaning, and meaning is a far more powerful antidote to loneliness than simply trying to fill the void with distractions. If you want to feel more connected, start by connecting. If you want to feel valued, bring value to others. In serving others, you will find yourself. Number 8. Control your perception of isolation. One of the most important Stoic teachings is that events themselves don't disturb us. It's our judgment of them that does. You might feel lonely because you've assigned meaning to a situation that doesn't necessarily deserve it. Epictetus put it clearly, "It is not events that disturb people, it is their judgments concerning them." Think about two people spending Friday night alone. One person is miserable, convinced that their solitude means they are unloved or forgotten. The other person is content, using the time to relax, work on a hobby, or simply enjoy a break from the chaos of the world. The situation is the same, but their interpretations make all the difference. Ask yourself, what story am I telling myself about my loneliness? Is it true? Or am I creating unnecessary suffering by assigning a negative meaning to something neutral? You can reframe solitude as a chance to grow, to reset, to enjoy your own company. You can see time alone as an opportunity rather than a punishment. The moment you change your perception, you change your experience. Instead of letting loneliness define you, redefine it. Take control of the narrative. Number 9, train yourself to be self-sufficient. There's a dangerous belief that happiness comes from external sources, friends, relationships, achievements, or recognition. While these things can enhance life, they don't create lasting fulfillment. That has to come from within. Marcus Aurelius reminds us of this when he says, "If you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment about them, and it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now." If you feel lonely, it's tempting to think that the solution lies in someone else, a new friend, a romantic partner, or more social interactions. But relying on others to fix loneliness is risky. People come and go, circumstances change, and if your happiness depends on external factors, you will always be at their mercy. True self-sufficiency means finding contentment in your own presence. This doesn't mean rejecting relationships or isolating yourself, but rather not depending on others for your sense of self-worth. Spend time cultivating things that fulfill you independently, reading, learning, exercising, creating. When you do this, loneliness loses its power over you, because if you can be content with yourself, you'll never feel truly alone. Number 10, don't let emotions dictate your actions. Loneliness and sadness have a way of clouding judgment. When you're in an emotional state, you might make rash decisions, texting an ex, isolating yourself further, or falling into destructive habits. But acting on emotion alone often leads to regret. As Seneca wisely said, "If a man knows not which port he sails, no wind is favorable." Imagine a sailor caught in a storm. If he panics and lets the wind dictate his course, he'll be lost at sea. But if he stays focused on his destination, adjusting the sails with reason rather than fear, he will make it through. The same applies to life. When loneliness creeps in, take a step back. Ask yourself, what is my mind telling me right now? Are these thoughts based on reality, or are they being amplified by emotion? Instead of reacting impulsively, anchor yourself in reason. You might feel alone today, but does that mean you'll always be alone? You might feel like no one cares, but is that truly the case? Emotions are temporary. Your actions, however, have lasting consequences. So, when you feel lost, don't let the storm of emotions steer your course. Set your sights on what truly matters and navigate with clarity. Number 11, accept the impermanence of all feelings. When loneliness or sadness strikes, it can feel like it will last forever. The mind plays tricks, convincing us that this moment of pain is permanent, but nothing in life, no matter how overwhelming, lasts forever. Marcus Aurelius reminds us of this simple truth. Everything is ephemeral, both that which remembers and that which is remembered. Think back to times when you felt low before. Maybe you were heartbroken, struggling with loss, or simply lost in your own thoughts. At the time, it seemed unbearable, but eventually it passed. Maybe the circumstances changed, maybe you changed, or maybe time simply carried you forward. The same is true now. The Stoics understood that everything, good and bad, is temporary. This is not meant to dismiss suffering, but to give perspective. Just as joy fades, so too does pain. Instead of resisting loneliness, accept it for what it is, a fleeting state, part of the natural ebb and flow of life. When you feel overwhelmed, remind yourself, this will pass. Don't fight it, and don't let it consume you. Just observe it, knowing that impermanence is a fundamental law of existence. You are not your emotions. They are just visitors passing through. Number 12. Build resilience through hardship. Difficult moments are not a sign that you are weak. They are the very experiences that make you strong. When you endure hardship, you're training yourself for whatever life throws at you next. Seneca puts it bluntly, fire tests gold, suffering tests brave men. Loneliness and depression can feel like suffering without purpose, but the Stoic view is different. What if this struggle is shaping you? What if, instead of breaking you, it is refining you? Think of an athlete. Muscles only grow through resistance. The same is true of the mind. This isn't about romanticizing pain, it's about using it. When you feel alone, take it as a challenge. What can you do with this time? How can you build yourself up so that when life shifts, as it inevitably will, you emerge stronger? Maybe it's reading, writing, reflecting. Maybe it's committing to something difficult, something that forces growth. Life is full of hardship, but those who embrace difficulty rather than fear it are the ones who come out stronger. You are being tested, but every test passed is another step toward resilience. Instead of asking, why me? Ask, what can this teach me? Because the fire that burns also hardens steel. Loneliness and sadness are part of life, but they don't have to define you. As the Stoics teach us, suffering is often a matter of perception. By shifting how you see solitude, reframing adversity as an opportunity, and taking control of your thoughts, you can turn loneliness into strength. These 12 remedies aren't just ideas, they're tools. The question is, will you use them? Will you let difficult moments break you, or will you let them build you? The choice, as always, is yours. If you found this video helpful, please like and share it to spread the wisdom of Stoic philosophy. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss future videos on Stoic living and personal growth. Thank you for watching, and I wish you strength on your journey.